A spacey mind, the true final frontier. Yeah, I thought I put this up a couple weeks ago and then put up the whole bit about how last week there wouldn't be videos because book releases, and come to find out, this never went up. So, like, kind of a rewind, maybe? Yeah. Spacey minds. Truly the final frontier. Hey guys, I'm starving, and I gotta know, am I the only one who has these weird random times, 2 or 3 times a year, probably about 3, where their dogs come begging when at the sight of chips and cottage cheese. But for like 36 hours, 2 or 3 times a year, I can't get enough to eat. I already had dinner. Okay, that was more like most people's breakfast / lunch, but I had that, and then I had my, evening meal, and I'm still starving. Sit. Good boy. All right, you can have it. Hold on, Toothless. Toothless does not need this. So he's getting a very little tiny taste. But anyway, I'm so hungry. So, yeah, should I have done this before I turned on the camera? Yes, I should. Did I? No, I shouldn't. But I swear my stomach is going to rumble, and then we're going to have trouble. So I'm just going to take a nice big bite and... call this good. So here's the deal. The pipes are calling. No, the pipe situation. Last week we were expecting someone to come out. They came out on Monday, and we were told that, thank you, Neville. We were told that Tuesday or Wednesday we would get the quote, most likely Tuesday. I was told only Tuesday, but apparently they had said something about possibly Wednesday. I didn't hear that part. I only heard about Tuesday. So here we go. We're doing this thing. We're waiting. At 1 o'clock on Wednesday, my husband called and said, we have no gas. So is this something that you're going to do or not do? She's like, oh, I just got the numbers from the guy, right? Okay. Yeah. Well, they declined to do it. Why she didn't just tell him that at the time, I don't know. They declined to do it. Fine, not a problem. Got someone else to come out on Thursday. 2 different guys to come out on Thursday. And they both gave us comparable estimates for the same job. But the second guy also gave a less expensive option that I personally think is a better choice. So both of them gave us, we're going to trench under the ground all the way around the house, because right now it's going up and over the roof. We don't want it over the roof anymore because we do plan on putting a new roof on. They're just going to have to work around that again. That doesn't sound like a good idea. So, really, Toothless? So we just said, no, we don't want that. So they gave us the trench price. Both of them were around $5,000. Then the second guy, though, which we have great reviews from people who've used him, he said the other option is to run it along the foundation up about a foot all the way around our house. We are on a raised foundation, post and beam type thing. Very popular in this area in the 50s for reasons I don't understand. But on the other hand, this is earthquake country. I mean, we live on a fault. There's like, they joke that there's a fault running down Norma Street because, And so, so I would think a post and beam would roll with those better than a slab. But they can run it about a foot above the ground all the way around and do it that way. Well, that was $1,600 cheaper, I think. It was significantly cheaper. And we're going back and forth, and all of a sudden I'm like, I want that one. I want that. That is a much better option, because if we ever have another leak before we die, we know these pipes have been on this roof for 36 years because we've lived here for almost just shy of 36 years, right? And it was 36 years ago that we were like in a 60-day escrow at this point. So it's been a long time ago, but that's what it was then. So, but if there's ever another leak, it'll be really easy to find it. If the leak is underground, we have to dig up and test all the way. Whereas if it's above ground, we can find it. Either way, in an earthquake, if anything, in an earthquake, it might be less of a chance of breaking if it's on the house than if it's in the ground, not anchored to something, just kind of laying in the ground, right? So I'm thinking, this is what I want. So after we all talked about it a bunch, we were like, yeah, this is the way we want to go. And so as long as they think it's a good choice, we're doing this. And they did it. Here's the footage, all the pipes. I can't get to the edifice without jumping over like trenches twice, which isn't so bad if it's just me, but if I'm carrying stuff, yeah, not easy, which is interesting. Seriously, Toothless, you are weird. Whatever. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I haven't been reading this week. I don't have a lot to share. And then I was like, there have been book tags I've wanted to do. I couldn't remember a single one. So I went looking and I ran across this one on here on BookTube. Some guy did an A to Z that he found. And I watched enough to find out who it was that did it, and he didn't tell me. So I go looking for this A to Z book tag thing. And it sounded like a fun one. I liked the questions. They were interesting. And so I'm like, that's it. I'm going for it. So we're doing this A to Z book tag. I'm putting a link to the blog that I got it from. And we're going to go from there. Because why not, right? So, one more bite. So this is what we've got going. Clearly, we have possibly tomorrow, those guys will come back with the inspector to get the okay. They did find a valve leak on our water heater. He said it's so tiny that it probably wouldn't have been an issue, but it could become one. And I'm like, I don't care how tiny it is. He was trying to be nice. I think he felt really bad because it's so bad. Just all at once, whoosh, everything went. So hopefully by the time I wake up, after this goes up, I'll be asleep. Hopefully by the time I wake up, we will have gas. And then we can wash dishes well. It's really hard to wash dishes when you have to fill the sink, make the kettle, and really hard, right? Hey, we have water. This isn't Northern Carolina, Western Northern Carolina or Eastern Tennessee, right? This is not Milton territory. This is me going, whoa. But it is a huge inconvenience to have to use the kettle to heat up the water, to pour it in the thing, to, then add some water, and you can't flux very easily. So we have a dishwasher waiting to be washed, and the other dishes we're just washing by hand as we get there because there's no room in that dishwasher now. And so it's getting kind of ridiculous. We're being really juvenile about not washing those dishes. But that's okay. I'm allowed to be juvenile. I have a book due. And Dad Burnett, I have to get that book done. So I'm going to get onto this so that I can get back to that. I'm in a really fun scene, and I want to get back to the scene. That's a good feeling. For those who have asked me, yes, I have been keeping up on the walking ever since I started, aside from when I was gone, which I did a lot of walking while I was gone. But aside from when I was gone, there were 2 nights that I did not feel well before I left, where I didn't walk. And I think that's it. I think that's the only time since, middle of August, I think, that I haven't walked. So that's pretty good. I'll take that. I will take that. And, yeah, I'm really enjoying it. The police are getting really comical because they're now stopping every night. Almost, are you okay? Everything good? I'm like, yeah. This is just so unusual for them. But because my book is going as I'm going, but last night the guy was like, you listening to Harry Potter? I was like, yes, I am. Just like, Is that the Half-Blood? I mean, how does he know? I don't know. So clearly I have become that person. I am that old. This little guy looked like he was like 12 to me. He was so young, and I'm like, you clearly were a fan for, yeah. So yeah, I don't know why. I haven't run across anyone. The only one night, one guy came up behind me, and I jumped because I didn't hear him coming up behind me. He was really quiet, and that was pretty funny. He was like, "I'm so sorry." I'm like, it's fine. You're good. Just have a great day. You know, it was no big deal. But you just don't expect someone without hearing them. That's why I don't wear headphones. I want to make sure I hear if anyone's coming up. But this guy was just so quiet, and he was just so apologetic. It was really cute. But anyway, so with all that said, all the updates that I don't even know if anyone cares about, I don't care. I need to get it out. That's why I'm doing book 2. And so now it's book and life 2 both, right? But yeah, so we're going to do this A to Z book tag, and I'm going to try to go semi-quickly. What I did not do is grab books to share. I will have to insert pictures. I pray I remember these pictures, right? Because, yeah, I can't carry stacks of books over those trenches. It's not going to happen. See, I started to say that a while back, guys. I tried. Yeah, I can't do it. It's not going to happen. So, with all that said, let's get into this A to Z book tag and see what's on there. I don't remember. I looked through it to make sure I knew what I would answer, so that this wouldn't take all day for me editing out, 20 minutes at a time going, oh, So I did all that. And now we're ready. So A is author you've read the most books by. And I thought about it. And I realized this is a tough one. So probably Carolyn Keene, because I read at least 28, because I owned 28 and I've read them multiple times. But I also read other books by her that weren't Drew, and other Drew books other than those 28. So I know I read a lot more than that, but I'm not sure. As an adult, maybe Isabella Alden, Pansy. She was Grace Livingston Hill's aunt, and she wrote a lot of really great books. I think my favorite is Man of the House. That's such a sweet book. But also 20 Minutes Late is really awesome. And oh man, there's so many. I shouldn't. Aunt Hannah, Martha, and John. Yeah, that's a really good one. Yeah, if I start, it'll be a problem. So I'm gonna say, as a child, probably Carolyn Keene, and as an adult, definitely, I think it's probably Pansy. She wrote a lot of books, but I could be totally wrong. It could be someone else that I'm just not really thinking of. So there's that. B, best sequel ever. This one was really hard because I'm like, sequel. So I feel like a sequel should be, here's book 1 and here's book 2, and there are no other books. So at first my brain went to The Maid and the Guest by Nina Prose, because I thought The Guest was better than The Maid, because I really hate the ending of The Maid. There's some stuff in there that just really ticked me off, and it didn't fit her personality, and it really bugged me. So, and it just was so wrong. But I loved the book. I just hated the ending. And The Guest seemed to redeem a lot of that, which was really great. But then now they've come out with another one. And so I realized that I don't have a lot of books where I think the sequel is the best ever. Like the Jess Corbin books, I really love that duology, but I honestly think the first book is still better. If I had to choose one over the other, I would definitely choose the first one. It was so good. So then I'm like, I don't know. And so I said, oh, forget that. I'm just going to go, which series is book 2 the best? I decided, let's go with book 2, right? And for that one, I went with John Flanagan's The Ranger's Apprentice, The Burning Bridge. That was our favorite of the series when my kids and I were reading it. It was just like, So good. So I'm going with John Flanagan and the Burning Bridge, and it's a definite better sequel than even like The Guest, except The Guest redeemed stuff that the first one didn't, so I don't know. But I still think it's a better sequel. We're going with that, because that. All right. Okay, C. Currently reading. So I'm listening to The Half-Blood Prince and the Eustace Diamonds. I decided I have to listen to these. Hopefully I can get through them faster if I listen, because I'm really fighting to get through them. Right now I feel like in the Eustace Diamonds, Lizzie's getting what she deserves, and so I might like it better. Apparently the coyotes are going crazy. Yay! But so there's that. And then I'm also reading Everything is Just Beginning by Erin Bartels. It's a musical. It's kind of strange that I would be reading this, because I've actually got a similar-ish male character, but not quite, that I have to work on. They just happen to have the same job, sort of, a bit, but not quite. This guy's an entertainer. My guy's a songwriter, but entertainers are often songwriters, right? Well, so there's that similarity, even though the story is completely different. The characters are totally different. That my story isn't about music. It just happens to have this thing behind it, right? But it seems odd that I would be reading this at the same time. But I'm reading that one. I'm about halfway through, and at first I didn't think I was going to like it. I seriously considered DNFing it, but now I'm really liking it. So that was good. I again in the middle of Eustace Diamonds, and I still have to finish the Baron's Apprenticeship. That one's almost done, and Suspended in the Stars is almost done. Do I have any others? Oh, yes, The Blooming of Delphinium. I don't know, 20 chapters in or something. It's so good. I'm really loving it. So that's what I'm currently reading, although I haven't been reading much. Mostly in the last few days, I read a Benedict Brown, finished that up and started The Half-Blood Prince, and then that, because it's audio. And that's pretty much all I'm doing right now is audio. So there's that. All right, D, drink of choice. I'm assuming this is supposed to be while I'm reading. And if I go with just while I'm reading, it would be tea. I do love to drink hot tea while I'm reading. Particularly the Harney & Sons Victorian London Fog. That tea. And if not that one, then Lion's Gold, which is like an Irish, just basic tea, breakfast tea, I think. But it's just a basic tea. So good. Love that stuff. But in general, it would be like Coke, water, tea, and probably water and then Coke and then tea in that order most-ish of the year. During the hottest times in summer, Coke goes first if it's been in the freezer for about 40 minutes first. I want it out just before it gets slushy, where you drink it and it's just starting to thicken, but it's not slushy yet. And so you feel like this liquid you can almost chew, even though it's just liquid. There's no ice crystals or anything left. It hasn't started that yet, but it's just right on the edge. My favorite. Coke is my favorite, but I am finding that I'm not drinking as much lately. I don't know why, and I'm okay with that. You know, if I'm not wanting it, I'm not going to drink it. Why would I pour calories down me if I don't actually want them? You know? I'm just saying. So that drink of choice, though, for reading itself, definitely tea. All right. Then e-reader or physical book. I call myself an equal opportunity reader. I will read anything, and it all depends on where I am. And if I'm trying to kill my dog yet, there's nobody out there. I don't know what he's barking at. It's crazy. Anyway, he probably finally figured out that the coyotes were howling, and so now he's going after them, and the coyotes are gone. Yeah, I don't hear the coyotes, so they're gone. Yeah, whatever. But so like if I'm traveling, I want an ebook. If I'm walking or doing housework or whatever, I want an audiobook. But if I'm going to sit down and read, just, you know, the traditional sit down and read, I want the traditional thing. I want a physical book. I want a book. But otherwise, yeah, That's a thing. So, for what it's worth. So F, fictional character you would have dated in high school. Okay, here's the deal. In high school, I really didn't date. This wasn't a thing. Possibly by popular demand. I don't know. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, it just wasn't a thing. Didn't really do that. I went to my friend's junior prom with him because he thought it was terrible that my school didn't have one and that I would miss out on that experience. So we had a blast sitting, drinking 7-Up and watching people have seizures on the dance floor. It was hilarious. The things that they were calling dancing, we were cracking up. So for the most part, it was a great time, but I don't really consider that dating someone. That was having fun with a friend. You know what I mean? But I decided to roll with it anyway and tried to think about it. And I was like, okay, Gilbert Blythe has a sense of humor and he doesn't take himself too seriously and he is intelligent, but he doesn't have glasses. And I was always a sucker for a guy with glasses. And yes, my husband had glasses when I married him. How'd you guess? But so there's that. But it's really, I don't know, it's the only person that age-ish that I can think of. I mean, I could imagine what someone that I admire in fiction might have been as a younger man. But you know what? Boys, teenage boys, they're often idiots. Okay, I'm just saying they're often really immature and idiots, and I wasn't really interested in most of them, so it's kind of hard. But yeah, for what it's worth, I'm gonna go with Gilbert Blythe because it seems like a safe bet. But I'm pretty sure that maybe Mr. Knightley would have been a neat teen, but dating wasn't a thing. So then what do you do, right? Go. So yeah, stop it. Now they're suddenly my best friend. Say hi. Say hi. So come here. Come say hi. Come here. Wee. You want to say hi? Go say hi. Go say hi. You should never not see you. Yes. Okay, I will bet you too. All right, go. All right, so yeah, that's what we're gonna go with. We're gonna go with Gilbert. I have a feeling he's someone that a lot would, but yeah. We're just going to stop with Gilbert and leave it there. Anyway, okay. G, glad you gave this book a chance. Trying to decide if I like my answer. My answers are pretty obvious. But I really don't have any others that I can't think of. I really can't think of any others. So I'm going to go with both. And there's a reason why I'm doing both. The Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Pie Society and the Sensible Shoe series. I'm going with both of those because they were both recommended to me by a friend whose taste in books I trust. And both of them I delayed forever. And I loved both of them a lot. So I feel like I need to read Wind in the Willows. It feels like it needs to be kind of a thing. Since she's the one who's just can't handle the fact that I haven't read it. So yeah, sorry. But yeah, that might need to be a thing. But I'm really glad. I loved both of them, especially, I want to say especially Sensible Shoes, because that series should have, well, both of them have things that I have a problem with, but that one, you have a female pastor in there, and that is something I doctrinally have issues with. And yet, I really learned a lot from reading about her and her struggles and her faith journey in the series, regardless of the pastor aspect. And in a sense, you can argue that both sides of that coin are presented as this is a caveat for or against. It's really very well done. My guess is that the author is pro, but I can't be sure of that, because you can take it as this is a caution as to why this is not okay. And so I love it because I don't think that's what the author was pushing. I don't think she was pushing anything. She was just showing the realities of what this is, whether this should or should not be, isn't her point. And so I thought it was really well done, and I really loved them, and I grew a lot reading them, and it's probably time already. That was 2022, I think, and I think it's already time to reread them. H, a hidden gem. Okay, so this is tough. I'm going to say The Kingdom of Ruins by D.C. Marino. I know she has been working on a sequel forever. Someday we will get the sequel. But even if we never did, that book by itself is good enough that I'm so sad that more people don't know about it. I love that book. And not just because I know Deborah. I just love that book. And it was one of the first more contemporary written fantasies that I read that I just fell in love with. And so there's that. Also, I gotta say, the Pollifax books, for 2 decades, I talked about these books to anyone who would listen. And nobody knew who it was. They didn't know what I was talking about. What are you talking about? A Little Old Lady Spine? No one wants to read that. And I was like, they're so good. Even my husband read them and he loved them, and he'd be like, no, they're good. And they'd look at him like, you read Little Old Lady Spies, and, but then, I don't know, like 3 years ago or so, maybe 4, on BookTube, I started seeing people talking about it. I'm like, yes, someone knows Emily Pollifax. I was so excited. And now she's kind of getting a resurgence, not just on BookTube. I'm hearing people talk about her when I'm just talking with people. And I'm like, yes, yes, yes. After 20 years, finally, I can talk Emily, which is really, really, really fun. And so, one of these days I should try to rank them, my favorite to my least favorite. I don't know if I can do it. I think it would be hilarious to watch me try, though. I would get a kick out of me because I'm like, I know which ones aren't my favorites, but which ones are? That's tough. Anyway, but also one that I don't hear a lot of people talking about that I thought were really, really, really good were the Rembrandt Stone books by David James Warren, which is Jim Rubart, David Warren, and Susan May Warren. David Warren is her son. They co-wrote this whole series, The True Lies of Rembrandt Stone, and it's a time travel thing. There's this watch that will take him to different places in time, and he's trying to correct something that happened, and every time he goes to a different thing, his reality has shifted, and he's freaking out because some of them are really bad and other ones are perfect, exactly what he wants. No, we can't have this, we got to stay here, but then something else terrible is going to happen if he stays there. And it's so good. And there's, I don't know, 13 of them maybe? I don't know, maybe there's not that many. It feels like there was a lot, though. They were so good. I loved them. I listened to them on audio. Jim Rubart narrated them, and yes, awesome. So I feel like it's not that nobody knows about them, but I do feel like they're kind of a hidden gem because I never hear anyone talking about them. But if I bring them up, there are always people who have been like, yeah, I read that, but nobody's talking about them. Why aren't they talking? Is it just me? Do I just like them and it's just me? I don't know. An important moment in your reading life. This one was really tough. My go-to answer is, Trade Goes in Brooklyn, because that's when I figured out that I wanted to be a writer. And yeah, there's that, but I'm going to go with strictly reading that doesn't really go toward writing. And I think I settled on the day that I realized that DNFing a book isn't a bad thing, and yet I need to be sure that I'm not DNFing too quickly. So here's that. So I chose for years to finish every book I started. I made myself finish books. But when I look back, I can see times where that actually prompted me not to read. Because I knew that, if I start this thing, I'm going to get stuck with it. And then I would just set it aside and not read for ages. And sometimes I set a book aside because I don't want it to end. Okay, there's that. But then there were times that I wouldn't read anything because I didn't want to deal with that. And so I was like, I need to have this mindset that I can DNF a book, that there's nothing wrong with it. I'm wasting my time by trying to plow through something that I am totally not interested in. But I didn't want it to become anytime a book is difficult to get through, for whatever reason. Maybe it's a classic that is a hard read, but it's good. Like some of Trollope's have been kind of hard, but there've been so much good in them that I'm glad I kept going. But I also, some books just aren't good. And why would I finish a book that, I've always been willing to shut a book and set it aside if there was content in it that I did not want to read. That's always been a thing. But what about books that are I'm just not interested in? There were a couple of the Googes, Child from the Sea. Oh my God, I've never been so bored. That's not true. There have been a couple of times since then at the beginning of the Bartels years. But before that, I don't remember ever being so bored. I just had to plow through. I was so done. And finally, I was just like, no, this is dumb. Fantasties or fantasies, depending on how you pronounce it. I want to call it fantasies because it's just fantasies with PH instead F, so it feels like it should be fantasies. But anyway, some pronounce it fantasies. Whatever. See, George MacDonald's. I was and that's the one that actually got me thinking, that one. I was so bored. I was totally not interested in this book. Had nothing to do with being difficult to read. It is not difficult to read. There's just nothing interesting about it. I didn't like it. Will I like it in 5 years? Maybe. Will I pick it up again? Possibly. Some I won't. I can't see me picking up Child from the Sea again. Just don't think I'm going to do it. I forced myself to finish Green Dolphin Street, and I kind of regret it. But Child from the Sea, I don't want to, because frankly, I am uninterested in whether or not this girl grew up to be Charles the First's or Second's, I think it was First's wife that nobody knew about. I don't care. And if I don't care, why am I going to waste my time on it when I could be reading things that I do care about? But what I don't want to do is shove aside the hard reads, like those Barsetshire books, the first 100 pages were rough. It was so much info dump. I don't want to not push past the hard stuff to get to the good stuff and stuff. I don't want to do that. So there's like this big balance. So I would say that moment of going, it's okay to DNF a book that you absolutely have no interest in. It's boring. You just, there's nothing to it. But you can't DNF a book just because it's not an easy read. So that's what I went for. So Jay is just finished. And I started to go with a Benedict Brown because I did just finish listening to one. But I forgot that I did the preliminary edits of Kisstletoe Misses by Joanne Markey. And that book, it is so funny. It's a Christmas rom-com where she goes and the whole family, she's got this big family of cousins and they're all just like in each other's business. And she has this ex-fiance who cheated on her. So she's like done with him and they are all just totally against him. And she's still brooding over him. So she ends up having to move. And when she moves, they're all going to go with her and they're all going to make this thing happen, right? Well, they create this like Hallmark movie book chapter thing for her life, and they just like, you're gonna be he'll be the lumberjack dude and you'll be the I can't remember what they did they call her, the heroine, the holiday heroine maybe, and then she's like, I'm Holiday Babe. And it's just so unlike her character. Her name's Jo. So unlike her character. It was so much fun. And I laughed at that book. I enjoyed that book. I loved seeing family dynamics and thought processes and belief systems and things that are very familiar to people that I know. And her working through which ones she considered to be biblical before and which ones were, she realized that she had a skewed view of, and which one, and all the things that go with it, all in a rom-com, so it's not heavy and preachy. I had fun with it. It was great, and it's coming out soon. Like, I think it's the 24th or 5th, I think. So I think that the pre-order might be up, and if it is, I'll put a link in, because it's just, wait till you see this cover. I can't wait. I'm going to steal the cover whether she's got it up or not, and I'm going to show you guys. So there. Ha! Tough luck, Joanne. So that one, that's the most recent thing I finished. And then K is kind of book you won't read. There's a lot, and yet not very many at the same time. I won't read erotica. I won't read gory horror. And I won't read books with a bunch of language. There's always just that moment where I cut it off, and it's usually a low limit. I do notice that I will tolerate a little bit more from a British voice actor, and I think it's because it doesn't register in my brain as strongly for whatever reason. But that is a thing. But yeah. Oh, and books with occultish stuff. Not going there. Just nope. Okay. Longest book you've read? Well, okay. Here's the deal. The longest book I've read, I know, without a doubt, is War and Peace. The reason I'm not counting that is I can't even tell you. Well, I'm assuming it takes place in Russia. I don't even know that. I just know that I read it when I was 15, when we were living in the motel in Rosemond, California. Yeah, that's all I know. Got it out from the library, had to check it out twice, and I spent pretty much all day, every day, plowing through that thing, trying to make sense of it. I don't know what happened. I shouldn't have been reading it at 15. Clearly, I was not intelligent enough to handle that book. But I read it, and I know my dad talked to me about it, so I must have retained long enough that he wasn't going, you weren't getting anything from this. Why aren't you remembering all this stuff? You know, so I must have done better at the time, but I don't know. Other than that, it's so hard. It's really hard to know. I wish I had done this in December, because hopefully in November I'll have the Brothers Karamazov, and then that will be it. But I think the Count of Monte Cristo was pretty long, if I recall correctly. And obviously some of the Barsetshires were 800 plus pages. I mean, I had shorter books, but they had really thin paper. So whatever that, there were some chunker books. So maybe those, I don't know, but I'm just going to say Count of Monte Cristo, because I just don't know. Okay. Major book hanger because of insert book here. I know I've had ones that were way stronger, but the first two books that came to mind were Junebug by Chris Fabry, because that was one of the most recent ones. I read that in June. And I know I kind of had one with the Housekeeper and the Professor by Yoko Ogawa, I think her name is. That one was so good. But I know there have been others. I mean, obviously the Sensible Shoe series, I definitely just walked away. Also, No Less Days by Amanda G. Stevens. Yeah. And we're just gonna drop it there, because they're starting to come back. I'm starting to think of other ones like Mrs. Kip, and so I should just stop here before I just gush on book hangers overs all day. That I should have like a book bar tag where it's like, pick your poison. That's the kind of drinking I could get behind. Yeah. Anyhow. Okay. N, number of bookshelves you own. I counted up in my head, and as long as my head is correct, we have 12 bookshelves. Most of them are floor to ceiling, and at least 36 inches wide. I know one of them is 50 inches wide. Can't be sure about the rest, but also around the ceilings in the house of living room, our room, mom's room, the back room, they all have shelves that go over the windows and around the room. So we have lots and great peeping gobs of bookshelves. Yeah. And I've gotten rid of probably half the books that we had in the last 3 years. So I'm just saying, of course I keep bringing more in, but I justify it because I got rid of about half. But although, libraries are just like chucking all the best books, they're just chucking some really great, wonderful things that children need to read and can't because they're getting rid of them. And so I was planning on getting rid of more of my older, some of the ones we used for homeschool, some of the Genevieve Fosters and Josephine Pollard and some of these other books. And now I'm like, no, I don't think so. I want them available so that if my grandkids need good, solid books that, have some meat to them, living books, I want them. So, yeah, I'm not getting rid of them. So, my husband's going to be disappointed, but he doesn't have to dust them, so life is good, right? Yeah. Oh, one book you've read multiple times. I could have listed a whole bunch of them, but since I feel like I'm ready for a reread, I'm going to go with Grayfox by Michael Phillips. I love that book so much. It's a young teen boy who gets upset with dad and he runs away to join the Pony Express, and then he kind of ends up injured, and this guy Hawk takes care of him and becomes kind of a spiritual mentor, and it's a wonderful book. And I feel like I'm kind of in the mood for that. Either that or The Book of Hours. That's another one I haven't reread in a long time that I really want to reread. But yeah, I've reread both of those multiple times. Book of Hours. Maybe that one. Anyway, we're just gonna stop there. Preferred place to read. Look, I will read anywhere. I will read on a house. I will read near my spouse. I will read in the air. I will read it, right? And I do when I fly, right? But if I'm just going to sit down and read, then my favorite place is my chair. So I'm going to put a little clip in here, but my favorite place is my chair. It's just a really comfy little place. I put my feet up and life is grand. So that's my favorite place to read, me. Okay. Q is quote that inspires you. And since it's by an author, I've decided this counts, but it's actually more about writing than about reading. But I think C.S. Lewis said something about not having a book long enough or a cup of tea large enough to satisfy him or something like that. That would fit, but I went with, I love writing. I love the swirl and sway of words as they tangle with human emotions. It just like illuminates everything that I love about reading. It just the way that words can do amazing things. Lies. I mean, they're lies. They've never happened. These aren't real. And yet there's nothing more real than these lies, and there's nothing more true than these lies that point you to truth. And so are they lies or not? I mean, it's just and speaking of lies, I have to tell this story because it fits here. So I used to write every night down at Denny's, and I would be there from about 9 p.m. until about 6 a.m. And one guy asked the server that's there overnight, or used to be overnight all the time, it's like, what is she writing? She's always over there on her laptop writing something. And the gal said, well, she's an author. She's writing books. And he's like, well, what kind of books does she write? And she's like, well, she writes Christian fiction. And he said, she writes lies about God. I love that so much. Like, yes, I write lies about God. It's so good. It's so good. Anyway, it just fit, and so I had to share. Next up is our reading regrets. I'm going to say this is a teenager thing. I'm going to say I read a lot of Lois Duncan when I was a teen. And I wish I hadn't. I feel like God really protected me from a lot of the stuff that was in those books. They're very highly laced with occultish things, astral projection, and true witchcraft, and all the stuff that really don't have any business reading. And I did. And I read a lot of it, and then just one day was like, no. And that was the end of it. And that was good. It's good, but yeah. If I regret that, and I kind of regret the McMasterson's Guide to How to Murder Your Employer or something like that. That was a really genius book, but I still regret that I allowed myself to be so impressed by the clever use of a foul word. Yeah, that's a regret too. Because the book, it didn't need it. It was really clever. It was really clever. And I don't think I should be impressed by a clever use of foul language. I'm just saying. As is for series you've started and need to finish, I would be here all day. So we ain't going to do that. I went over here to this stack of series books that I haven't put away yet from series September. Yes, I still haven't put them away. They're still stacked up there. And one of the ones stacked up there is The Clockwork Dragon by James R. Hannibal. It's from the Section 13 series, and I'm going to go with that one because that will finish the series, which would be nice. And it's one that I want to finish. It's one that I should have been able to finish and didn't. So we're just going with that, and we're calling it good because otherwise I will be here all day. I have pages in my journal of unfinished series. I'm just saying. Some I have decided are going to stay unfinished. Most I haven't. Okay, T is 3 of your all-time favorite books. Here's the deal. This is almost impossible to answer. So this is going to be the first 3 that I came up with tonight. If you asked me this question in an hour, I would probably come up with 3 different ones. And if you asked me this question tomorrow, it would be even 3 different ones. And next week, next month, it's going to change. I have lots of favorite books because I am predisposed to love a book until you give me a reason not to like it. Doesn't mean it's going to be a favorite, but that does mean that I do tend to have lots of favorites. So, up first is Anne of Green Gables. I feel like even if it weren't true, I just thought of this literally this just a second. Even if it weren't true, this is Antober. I have to say it, even if it's not true, but it is true. Also, A Tree Grows in Brooklyn. It's one that I've reread multiple times, but I don't reread often, if that makes any sense. It's a hard book, but there's so much good in it. And then it's a toss-up between Parnassus on Wheels and The Haunted Bookshop. The Haunted Bookshop is so infinitely quotable. There's so much in it that I love the quotes. The discussions they have about books and all those things, I love it. Literally, you little Mr. ADD need to lay down. Go lay down. So there's that. But I think Parnassus on Wheels is a better story. So there's that. Just saying. You is unapologetic fangirl for insert author here, right? I'm going to say Benedict Brown. I nobody talks about him. I know people read him. He has hundreds of reviews on his books. They're very high reviews. People love them. But I don't know anyone reading them. I love them. I think they're a lot of fun. There's just something about them that really resonates well with me. Also, Amanda G. Stevens. Absolutely. No doubt about it. Definitely Amanda G. Stevens. I think that gal is brilliant. And I know she's like kind of veering off into doing something else with a different pen name. And I'm kind of disappointed because I really love what she has done thus far. They're so good. Sarah Brunsvold. I love Sarah Brunsvold. Definitely. And then older books, I keep getting drawn back to D.E. Stevenson. I love her. And I would give anything to sit down, have a cup of tea with her, and just pick her brain. Because I love not just how she writes and what she writes, but I love how she combines them into something that's just wholesome without being saccharine. She's genius. V is very excited for this release. And I'm going to say The Burning at Rosemont Abbey. I think that's the name of it. Let me see. Yes, The Burning of Rosemont Abbey. It should be here. Well, it would be here today, except we're not going to get mail today because it's federal holiday. But so it should show up on Tuesday, tomorrow. And so that'll be cool. And I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, I just love the sound of this, you know, trying to find out who did this thing and the time period and everything. So, yeah, I've already talked about it a couple of times, so I'm not going to talk about it again. But it is on the way. It was one of the pre-orders that I did buy from that list of which ones, right? This is one of the ones. And then your worst bookish habit. I think this is kind of probably universal for most readers. Not all, but most readers. Yeah, it's buying more books. More books. When you haven't read all the books you have. I have hundreds of books that I haven't read, and I still buy more. Like, I just ordered one last night before. And then X marks the spot, and it says, pick the 27th book from your top shelf. And I did do that. I counted it. And it came out to Mistaken by Karen Barnett. That was an easy one. And then Y is your last purchase. It is Murder in the Bookshop by Carolyn Wells. Carolyn Wells wrote a lot of youth fiction. Back in the day, you know, like the 30s and before that, teens through 30s. She wrote a lot of youth fiction. She wrote the Patty Fairfield series. She wrote the Marjories. Did she write Elizabeth Ann and Uncle Doctor? Or was that Josephine Lawrence? I think that was Josephine Lawrence. She wrote a lot, but she also wrote a lot of adult fiction, mysteries in particular. And I found her name on a list of Victorian authors when I was going through stuff for the book I'm writing, and I'm like, oh, well. So I found out about this book, which, I mean, I knew she had written for adults, but I just kind of brushed it off, you know. But I didn't realize she wrote mysteries. And so I was like, oh, I want that. So I went to eBay, and I found one that was hardback. It was like, I don't know, it was like new, and it was like $11 shipped. And I'm like, it's kind of pricey for a used book, but I'm going to go for it. So that one should be coming soon, and I should know something about it, and hopefully I will love it. But Murder in the Bookshop sounds good. I'm all for that. And then Z is Z's stress. I can't speak it. Z's is Z's Snatcher, a book that kept you up late, way too late. And here's the deal. Because this happens so often, I can't answer it. I would say almost every book that I am in just in the middle of and loving, and it's time to go to bed, I'm going to keep reading. And I'm going to say that happens not as much now as it used to. Now I can't miss sleep. It doesn't work well, but that's one of the reasons why I'm not reading usually before bed. I'm usually trying to work it out so that I make, you know, which is another reason why I can't remember, right? But yeah, I know as a kid, obviously, often I would stay up and, you know, read Nancy Drew, which you're going to laugh. I might stay up even up to an hour past bedtime to read those. And that seems really ludicrous, but I was risking being sick by doing that. Because if I stayed up more than half an hour late, I would get sick the next day. And so staying up that late, I would never do it unless it was a Friday night so I could sleep in a little bit on Saturday to make up for it so I didn't get sick. I was that girl that went to summer parties and it's 8:30 and I'm like, night all, and I'm out, you know, because I would get sick. I don't want to get sick. So, but there have been times, especially with audiobooks, that I will let it just keep playing. I know several of Jacqueline Winspear's have done that. Benedict Brown, I've definitely done that with. Trying to remember. I think I did it even with some of the D.E. Stevenson's that, you know, I listened to after I had already read them. You know, just keep listening, you know, and usually fall asleep, and that's okay. It's okay. So yeah, that's the A to Z book tag, and that's. I don't even have a stack to show you. I don't have anything, but you know what I do have? I have my snack that is over here. This is my one of the things that I eat while I'm reading, and so I have to have a napkin there so that I don't get the book all dirty. But yeah, I love sour cream and onion chips, and I use cottage cheese for the dip. It's one of my favorite snacks. Anyway, I'll put the questions below. Consider yourself tagged if you want to do it. I think it would be a lot of fun. Answer any and all of the questions in the comments that you want, that you like, oh, I would have said this. And, you know, let's just have fun chatting. And hope you're reading. How's Antober going? Anyone have any good things? I know I'm reading a pretty cover. And I read Kisstletoe Misses as an ebook, so that counts. And so I've got my E. And I just can't remember. It's just all gone over the weekend. So I'll be back with something. And hopefully gas. I just sounds so wrong.